Hi guys. I closed the I closed the curtains, but now it looks like I'm like kidnapped in some bunker here when I'm doing this, but safe and sound anyway. We moved house for the summer when it's getting done up. So yeah, I'm just gonna talk through. I just have to analyze someone's lactic test, so I'm just gonna do that live now because I am busy with a load of house stuff and back aware belt stuff. So it'll just save me time. And then I was going to talk about like what sessions to do after a race, and I'm going to talk about um energy. Energy, and if you're busy in life, how to schedule the sessions, how to like break it down. So let me do the this first. I'm just going to share the screen. Okay, so here is someone's test. We get tests done in DCU if they're in North Dublin, UCD if they're in South Dublin. So you can see that they started at rest, so their uh, millimoles is 1.0. It went up to 1.16, which isn't a big jump. Then 1.14. So absolutely not worried about that. That's kind of nice and flat, which is what we want to see. So that means that because there's not an increase in the lactate, um, it means that we know that at these paces, the person is like 100% aerobic. I use the analogy of the electric car. If you have an electric car and no smoke is coming out the exhaust, well, then it means that um, it just means that like, it's 100% battery. And if you got no increase in lactic, it's 100% aerobic. Now you can see from 1.7 to 1.75, there is a jump. Okay. So between here and here, there's a little bit of smoke. So what does that? We're not 100% aerobic. Might be 95% aerobic. So somewhere between here and here, we've gone into our first kind of aerobic jump. This guy's gone, the tester has kind of said 2.01. I think it's happened there from 1.17, if I'm honest. So a 10, stayed quite stable there, which is good. So like that's a low end zone two. So I imagine this person's half decent at marathon running because they're good at this pace. Um, as the pace increases, it went to 2.8, which is kind roughly here be what you'd run a marathon in between these two paces. And then there's a big jump after here. Now again, I think he's saying 13. That's too fast. So because you see, what you can sometimes do is if you draw a line and then it's just a complete spike. So once we're past here, any increase in pace is purely coming from the anaerobic. And how do we know that? It's because there's a lot more lactic being produced to get that pace. It's like, again, if we take our hybrid car, if we're driving and, like, say, here there's a bit of smoke coming out the exhaust, but the battery's working hard. There's more smoke, like the engine's really kicking in, but the battery's working hard. After here, it's like now to get any faster, it's just 100%. Like the battery's kind of tapped out here. So if we want to improve aerobically, we got to train around here, around that 12. Now 2.8 is low for a lactate. Normally it's around 4. Um, which would be somewhere around like here, around the 12.5. Now we do this on heart rates because it can always be the case. I think 4.79 is way too much. You're looking for where the big jump occurs, and I think the big jump occurs between 2.8 and 4.7. So, um, so we can just see the heart rates they did then at those paces. He started at 1727 to 132. He has relatively low heart rates anyway. So I'm going to say like below zone one is 120 and below. So zone one is 120 and below because after that pace, now somewhere in there, um, there was a jump. So you're better off if you're going to go conservative here. So I'm going to say zone one is below uh that kind of 1.7, so 120. Between that 121 then as a zone two, uh up kind of into that like 138. I'd give that as a large range. Zone three then usually around 2.8. So I'd say it's like a 139. I'm going to say roughly 139 up to, I would kind of hit this at one. If he's at 2.8, he's at 2.8 by that. So let's go back here. And look, it doesn't have to be like a super exact science on this. What we want to give is, he say, like, I don't think that's the lactic plus here. I think once you're at the 155, he'd be working very hard. I think 150 would be the absolute max. And actually, I think more like 147, we know for definite. So say 148 to 152 is going to be very nice for his lactic threshold, um, which gives this I'd say 145 to 139 as his marathon pace, because he produces a decent amount of lactic here at 10. Um, like I've seen that low, I've seen that like 7 being the max, 6 being the max. So it's not bad lactic, but I think we're good here. What I'm going to recommend for this person will be, even if they're getting ready for a marathon, they're actually decently developed here, but once it's spiking hard after 2.8 is not a great sign. So working around like threshold pace, around that 2.8, around that like 147, 146 heart rate's going to actually really help. I hear. I think 155 would be too hard. 148 up into 152 just to get comfortable here. Uh, at like, just if you get the breathing better there, if you get the ability to cruise better there, I think we could, in a next, if we didn't every we didn't wouldn't need to do a test, because roughly you can see the heart rates here are going to be roughly low anyway. But I think what we do is we just get longer time here, which would really help in all the kind of aerobic distances. Um, because I'd say we're good at like going for a long time, and then I'd say we're not great at like going at faster speeds. And I mean like cruisy faster speeds. Not like going flat out like sprinting. Like their actual sprint might be not that bad because they can generate a lot of lactic. So I am going to use those as my zones, and I'll send that on to the person, and we will update their program then. Okay. So yeah, that's just, you want to use these. And again, as I said to people, he'll have this then forevermore. You won't need to do a test. Your lactics will change, but his heart rate will always be roughly around the same. Um, what I think with the training, what will happen is if we start training around here, it'll just be longer before we get that big spike. We should be able to get like another one at maybe like 3 millimoles, get used to that versus this like massive spike when you go up 1 kilometer per hour. Um, I think we just improved here. It'll bring everyone else on, because then the speed that you're doing these will be a bit more comfortable. And it kind of fills out the gap because it's a good cruising pace. He's decent. He's very decent at the lower end of the aerobic. Higher end is just for running economy anyway, VO2 max kind of material. So I think it's just more here is where we want to develop a little bit more. Yeah. Okay. So back to the kidnapping place. You see my hands, I'm not recorded. Not not tied up. Um okay, so two things I say is, if you do a race, what session to do? Keep it aerobic is like the name of the game. If it's a short race, the best way, look, I don't think, if it's a mile or something very short, we'd recommend doing some threshold after that, just to pump up the actual volume for the day. You haven't actually done a lot of volume. So if you did like 2 miles at threshold, or yeah, even like easier, like zone three, it doesn't have to be hard. And really, you want to kind of clear a lot of the lactic. So doing something like 2 miles just gives you at least 3 miles, and then your cool down. But a nice session to do, especially if you're doing a kind of series of races, is the next day to do 4 by 6 minutes at kind of zone two slash zone three. And what that has two kind of effects. The first one is it helps clear a lot of the lactate, or a lot of the, yeah, little kind of stuff that can kind of build up. Yeah, the waste products and stuff. And then two, it helps top up the aerobic as well. So you get this lovely benefit of um we just do it in a run. Like I wouldn't even warm up or stretch or anything really for that. Now you could do that if you wanted, but just in a run, just do gentle pickups, gets you breathing, which helps clear things a little bit easier. And this again tops up the low end aerobic. So in a 2 day period, then, if you imagine like they're nearly 2 sessions back to get back, you got like this high intensity kind of VO2 max type, because a race is always going to finish with a max effort, isn't it? Like you're going to finish a race flat out. So then you've done the high end, say zone 5, zone 4, maybe for the start bit, max effort. Like we just looked at guys' lactics there. When a couple of guys did the Morton Mile, Morton Mile, they did the 5K at the Morton Mile event, and even 10 minutes after they took some lactic, and one guy's lactics were like 17. Like so that guy finished 10 as a max. Theirs was 17. So that's at the end of a 5K, a huge amount of lactic. So if you do a little session the next day, like 4 by 6 minutes, um, what you can do is, and I'm talking like less than zone 3, like very easy, like say for the guy we show there, his zone, what was his zone 2 be? His zone 2 is like kind of like 130, like just a kind of steady pace, like 132, 133, up to 136 he can go. Um, I have two other zones, like so I wouldn't once he goes into 139, say he's into like kind of marathon pace. So like yeah, kind of 136, even into 139 by the last couple of reps. Something is low end aerobic. You're doing two good things then. The first thing you're doing is you're clearing the lactic and waste products. So if you can imagine, like even 10 minutes after a race, they have like 17 millimoles of lactic. So there's a lot of waste products going. And I don't know if you've done it, but when you do a high intensity effort, I did a race just on a weekend. It was only only a 1500. Like I drank like 4 liters of water and different stuff, like basically on the way home, like just being thirsty. And I didn't go to the toilet like for a pee for hours. Like, so like if you can just think about all the like demands that are happening inside the body there to kind of recover that you can like if I drank 2 liters of water now I'd have to stop to go out to go out for a pee. So you can imagine like the stuff that's going on that like even though you're drinking a lot of water, you drank a lot of water before the race. Um yeah, you might need to go for a pee for like hours on end after a race. So just shows like doing something the next day helps clear the lactic, clear like some waste products. And then, as I said, okay, you're clearing these lactics, and then you've had this very high intense effort. And then the next day, you can have this very low end aerobic effort. So you're not doing zone 3 or zone 4, but you're really doing very high zone 5 and then kind of zone 3, very low end zone 2, very low end zone 3. So you get a nice little thing. And then sometimes you find that like delayed onset muscle soreness, like DOMS, can hit a lot harder like 2 days after a race. So if you've kind of done your race, if you've done the session the day after, what we then do is discount the session during the week. So say, for example, this is especially good for like, say, Sunday races. But if you do a race on Sunday, the next day you do in your run 4 by 6 minutes. So you warm up or jog for 15, 20 minutes, and then you do 4 by 6 minutes off maybe like a minute, 90 seconds recovery, nice and easy, and then 10, 15 minutes to cool down. Um, if you normally do a session on Wednesday, you can skip that session because you've already got the kind of aerobic session that you probably would have done. So then you just run easy Tuesday, run easy Wednesday, run easy Thursday. So you've had a decent bit recovery from the race, say rest day Friday, and then you're back into doing your normal workouts on Saturday. Versus if you race um on Sunday and then do an easy run Monday, you could be just stiff and sore anyway, like Tuesday, and then you're into another workout, and because it's like the time has passed, now you're going to go back to more of your traditional aerobic type session. So you're not going to do a zone two run on the Wednesday. You're going to have to really do a zone three. Yeah, more of a zone three. You might do like, yeah, 4 by 7 minutes at zone three, for example, or 3 to 5 reps of 7 minutes or 6 minutes at zone three, for example. And then normal run Sunday or Thursday, rest day Friday, normal session Saturday. Um, yeah, so you're going to be going faster. So you can do that as well, but it's just something that sometimes we do is these like little recovery reps to kind of give you time off later in the week because you're recovering, you can go slower. And they kind of blend out because it's nearly like two sessions back to back. So it kind of all adds together to get the other thing versus doing your normal session on a Wednesday, being kind of tired and stiff for it anyway. But still then having to get the heart rates up to what you'd normally get them up to because you've had like a lot more time to recover. I don't know if I'm explaining that last point that well. I might have to try summarize it again just so it is clear for people. Because it's the next day, there's a lot of lactates, there's a lot of like metabolites, and you're fatigued anyway. So aerobically, you can get the same kind of stimulus running slower, like because you can nearly take it as a second half of the race session that you did. Whereas if you have 2, 3 days recovery, you can't do that. It'd be like, for example, if you were doing a workout or a session and you had you did a mile or 1,000 meters of a rep and you only had a minute recovery, and then you had to do, and say you did 400 meters hard and you only had like 90 seconds recovery, you might then just do like some threshold work to clear that. And because you haven't had crazy amount of recovery, it can nearly be classed as like 400 break into 1,000, and you're going slower, but you're clearing lactic and building aerobic benefit. Whereas if you had like 10 minutes or 15 minutes off and then did your aerobic, you're like, well, you've had a lot of recovery, so you want to be a little bit more, you'd want that K rep to be a bit harder, you know? So it's the same. If you had 2 or 3 days to recover, you're kind of back into your normal workout. So, but yeah, you're going to be stiff and sore after the race. So it's just a nice way sometimes, just something to practice is, or to change up every so often is just to do a very low end aerobic session the day after, and then give yourself extra time, extra recovery on the day, if day zero is the race, day one you do your session, then you have day two, three, four, five are easier to kind of recover from everything you've done, versus just going back into a normal week. Then I was chatting to a friend. There was two. Just the second thing I just want to talk about is energy. I always talk about this, guys. You can't really burn the candle at both ends. And what I mean by that is if you're in a stressful time. Now, I'm tired a little bit with the move, but it's like not super stressful at the moment. We're all moved into the house that we're in. I'm actually getting naps and stuff like that because I'm in a race on Sunday, racing again next Saturday. I'll race in 2 weeks' time. I'm in my kind of like, because into my summer, I don't have like lecturing. I'm only doing a bit of physio and a good bit of stuff to do with the back of wear bells. Um, but yeah, it's all manageable. So two athletes they've been doing like, and they had contrasting approaches. My friend was kind of coaching one, and the other one was a sprinter. They were chasing a qualifying time, to be fair. But like, um, the girl who my friend was coaching, um, James, excellent coach, he took a downtime there. You know, do sessions based on, even though she wasn't going to run as fast, do sessions based on heart rate, on time, on effort. Not even on effort, because sometimes people can kind of get heart rates, time. You could put effort in if they literally listen to themselves. No pressure on these sessions. Because why? Because you're doing your leaving cert. Like there's a lot of stress. It's you're studying, you're getting ready for exams. You don't want to be like, oh my God, I have to go out now and hit this time. Where the other person, in fairness, they were chasing a time. They stayed running hard, stayed having like getting ready for fast races at that time. So the training stayed quite intense. And look, it could be coincidence, but this does happen a lot where this girl then who was chasing fast times, she's after tearing her hamstring. So she's out for 6 to 8 weeks anyway. The other girl, she had a bit of down. Her first race back wasn't great, but she's after running a PB and qualifying in her last race. So she's going to the World Championships now, and is in good shape to do it now. Whereas, and it's just because it's like, listen, it would be ideal. She had to get the time as well, and you're taking a big chunk. You're taking like say a month out where you're going more into base and hoping that you can get the when things calm down. She went back into a kind of hard block then that you survived that, but I think it works out. And it's the same if you have a lot of stuff on in work, if you're very stressed, it's like it's not a great time to be racing. It's not a great time to be because if you're going into a racing block, you need to be hitting times. You need to be getting specific sessions in. Even if you're not someone who goes to the track or whatever, you need at some stage, like kind of 6 weeks out, you need to be looking at going to a track, looking at measured, like ones that are measured. Club track things are brilliant that way. Like trying to get in basically hard reps. Now you don't have to kill yourself, but like ones where you're concentrated, you're like dialing in because I always say it like I was trying to break 14 minutes for 5K and I ran like 14:18. I was very aerobically fit. And then I had a bad race around like 14:30 and I was talking to Dave McCarthy after. I was like, oh, I'm hoping to break. I could have even been before the race in fairness to him. Um, because we get on really well. So, we wouldn't like sugarcoat things for ourselves. But like I was like, I'm hoping to break 14. And he just says like, okay, and like what in your training indicates that you should do that? And I was like, he is dead right. It might have been afterwards, like I was hoping to break 14 and I've ran 14:30. And he's like, yeah, what in training indicates? And he's right. I was like, I'm aerobically fit. I'm in generally good shape, but I haven't done like the specific sessions to say like this is the reason. And like in fairness to Dave and in fairness to my coach, sat down and it was like, okay, I need to start adding in these type of sessions. Started doing like I have it in my programs now, like 1200 at 5K pace. Like I want to run 67s per 400 meters. You got to practice running 67s at 400 meters. So running, I'm not talking about this all year round now, by the way. Like this is just a couple of specific sessions, like 1200 and whatever that was, like 319 or whatever. And then, well, it's 321, it's 67s, but I think I hit in like 319 or 320. And then lap jog recovery hit another like 800 in like 208, like more like 3K pace. And then it was doing like kind of more mile reps in kind of between 5K and 10K shit. So stuff where you're like, okay, we're dialed in. Now, if I have a lot on in work, that is not the time to do that. Like now is the time to do that for me where I can do a workout and go for a nap, and I can, because I'm not lecturing, I have more like flexibility in the work that I'm doing. So yeah, if I was really safe to move like a couple of weeks ago, then we were moving and it was stressful. You're up late, moving. Like I don't know where I had all this stuff. Like it just took nearly 2 weeks of like long days to move everything out of our house and organize things. Um, but yeah, that wouldn't be the time to race. Then I was like, okay, let's just do a few aerobic sessions. Like stay fit, stay strong and keep my energy. And you know what was so funny? I actually got like when we went for this Hyrox relay, I got sick like straight coming off the plane, and that was probably like that was because with friends and stuff. But the travel and everything going on, it was probably like, oh, yeah, you're pushing yourself a little bit too much here. But like I was just saying to my friend, like I was doing his workouts. Now, like I'm not like being disparaging, like I'm faster than he is, but I was barely hanging in. But I was like not forcing anything. It's like, look, I'll just go at your pace. This is roughly in the zones for me. Or actually, sometimes it could have been probably a little bit hard and like way down on what I'd normally run, but didn't force anything. Didn't need. I'm not a big fan of people like stopping completely, to be fair. Like you don't want to get in the habit of I'm feeling bad, I take a rest day. That's not the way. The way is I'm feeling bad, let's run easy. I'm feeling bad, let's like use heart rates to modify. So it's like the paces can be down, but people who start taking rest days every time they're feeling tired and even sick, you're not going to get any fitness that way. Um, Now, if you're dying in bed, obviously take a rest day. But if you're walking around, put on the heart rate monitor and go out, even if you're only having to power walk because you're bad, and as long as you're not worse the next day, um, I go again, you know. But all that to say, didn't panic. This was a little bit earlier. Started like just stayed doing the sessions, was feeling crap, wasn't running well, but didn't try drain my energy. Didn't like force that. You know, I knew like stressful time, you run down, just like just get through this. Like, you know, run with friends, do like do your sessions with them, like even if it's slightly slower. And then I was running with that same friend and you could just feel a click. You know, like things were back. I was probably sleeping well. I was like, oh my God, that session, heart rate's still on heart rate, but the times are way down. And that's why I love heart rate, is because I was on the heart rates and I do it in miles. So I'll try, say it was 4 minute per Ks, we're running my threshold in. And all of a sudden we're back down now at like 315 per K. And I was like, oh baby, we're back here. And same heart rates, feeling better, like feeling like I had good energy in me. And then it's like, went to the track, did a really good session, not forcing it either. Like again, going in, and it's like, oh yeah, just these times are coming nicely. And then that allowed me to go, all right, let's get back into a racing period and now have one or two sessions where I'm not dreading here. I'm like excited to try hit these times. So in conclusion, just looked over a lactic threshold test for someone. Second, sessions between races, what ones to do. And then lastly, just looking at going to open this up to get some light again. Lastly, looking at um conserving energy, looking at what you have on during your days, during your weeks. Not energy is so important. Don't flog yourself. Don't be taking complete rest days or anything like that, but don't flog yourself. Understand if you're in a busy period or stressful period, that it's all you only have the one battery. If it's getting taken from somewhere, you can't just ignore that and stay training like the way you are. Go on heart rate, go on time, go on just effort and feel for a while. Make that less, uh, less jeopardy. Like just that you're just you're doing your bit, and over time that'll really, I think that'll really really help. So, because ignoring that, I've seen even with Brian Maher, my friend, he's a farmer. When does he ever get injured? It's when he basically goes running through calving season. He's actually fit, and then he stays racing, and then injury or illness then, and he never seems to get injured or ill any other time. So just watch that, just that tale from the two leaving certs, just kind of rang home that again. I was like, you know what, it's an important lesson to kind of repeat loads of times. Okay, thanks guys. See you next time.